Next up, Robert Labbe and Mark Harrison back up to have the harnessing CX tools to transform organizational culture.
Thank you.
All right. So occasionally I come across something that I think, wow. I get to work with brands all over the world, and we talked a lot about actually how do you empower people, how do you equip people, how do you change culture. And for me, the story you're about to hear is one of those wows. It's about getting very practical and very applied and really making a change. So I'm going to get out of the way.
Oh, thanks, Mark.
And hand it over to you, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm Robert Labbe. I'm from Export Development Canada. I'm here today really to talk about culture. And when we think about CX, the 6 disciplines of CX, culture is really one of them, but it's often one that's maybe a little bit nebulous, right? And what I want to share today is really what we feel is a success story that we've had in terms of helping to drive a customer-centric culture using CX tools. Because what we know is culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? That's a Peter Drucker quote. And if you can have the right strategy on paper, but if you can embed it into the culture, that's where you'll really drive results. One other thing I'll note, my hope with this presentation is just to share as many practical examples as possible about what we did, because as you can see from the little Canada logo on the slide, we have no competitors in the room, right? We're Canada's export credit agency. We're here to enable the private sector. So I really want to get practical and just share as many examples about what we did. But to kick things off, I'm just going to share a little bit of a video, and then we can talk about it.
When exporters look out at the world, they see endless possibilities. Un avenir que ni frontières ni risques s'entravent. From the moment they decide to venture to new markets to each step in scaling their global operations, we'll be there to support them throughout their exporting journey, because that's EDC's impact. We'll be there for the innovative solar panel manufacturer from Ontario, using advanced robotics and automation to provide clean energy to homes and businesses across the US and Mexico. When they need to manage foreign exchange risk, validate their views on emerging market trends, or evolve their export strategy, we'll offer ways to protect against currency fluctuation and detailed reports and commentary on global economic conditions. Because that's EDC's impact. Nous serons là pour l'entreprise de vêtements écologiques du Québec, celle-là qui vient de conclure des contrats avec des détaillants majeurs au Royaume-Uni et en Australie. Lorsqu'elle devra agrandir son usine pour répondre à la demande croissante, nous nous associerons à son institution financière pour dégager le fonds de roulement qu'il lui faudra pour prospérer. Parce que c'est ça, l'impact de DC. We'll be there for the revolutionary agri-food company, transforming prairie-grown crops into wholesome snacks for consumers in China and Singapore. Lorsqu'elle sera rendue à se bâtir un réseau international et à apprendre les tenants et les aboutissants de l'étiquette des affaires, nous l'accompagnerons dans une mission commerciale d'Équipe Canada. Nous la présenterons à des détaillants mondiaux et nous l'aiderons à s'adapter avec assurance aux coutumes locales, parce que c'est ça l'impact de DC. A complex and exciting journey awaits every exporter with unique needs at every step along the way. Nous comprenons leurs défis. Nous savons comment leur ouvrir des portes. Nous avons le savoir, les outils et les solutions financières pour les aider à croître. C'est notre raison d'être. Because every transaction and every shipment have the potential to make Canada and the world better through trade. C'est ça, l'effet sur les clients. We all play an important role in making their exporting journey a success at every touchpoint and interaction with EDC. So, let's all create an experience that accelerates their export impact.
So this video, was shared at our most recent employee conference. It was the first time that the whole organization had gotten back together after COVID. And we have representations all over the world, so it was really the first time we flew everyone in together. And this is what we used to launch the conference. But what it was is it was actually an awareness campaign. It was the CX function raising awareness to the organization around some of the new tools that we had developed. Because oftentimes, as a CX function, you have to sometimes market the customer to the rest of the organization, right? So that's really what we did, and it was part of a larger installation that we had done. We had lots of things in the hallway and ways for folks to engage. But I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the tools that we had developed to really, again, provide this comprehensive view, an exhaustive view of everything that we do and who we support, right? And we set out, there was the organization, we were undergoing a digital transformation. We'd set forward a new strategic agenda, and we were about to undergo a major transformation. It was the first time that we'd actually set out a 10-year strategy in our organization, and that we were shifting from being product-focused to customer needs-focused. And our team, we were growing at that time. But there's this window of opportunity when an organization is doing that for the CX team, because the organization is never really ready out the gate to start building things for the customer. There's legacy technology, there's mainframes to retire. So there was this sort of 6-month window that we had, and we said, you know what? This is our opportunity. We're going to lock ourselves in the room, a team of 10 people. We're going to pull all the data that we have, all the research. We're going to go and do new research, and we are going to paint a picture of what the future is going to look like for the organization, and really get clear, aligning our customer personas and business archetypes to the new strategy. So that's exactly what we did. So the way this works is, and it's always a challenge, in the B2B space, working with customer personas. We had personas in the past, and what we found was challenging was, if this person moves to this company, are they still this persona? So we found the framework that worked really well for us was taking our total addressable market and actually personifying it, and actually having business types and then the people who work there. I just want to make sure there we go. So all of these tools actually intertwine and actually provided a complete picture to the organization to empathize and understand our customers both at an organizational and an individual level. So the journeys that we created, and these are not really typical journeys. What these are is really, I call them sort of Lego blocks that the organization can now play with. Because the way that the organization shifted was we split from really being organized around product. We reorganized the organization to be organized around segments. So small business segment, medium segment, large segment. But you really only need to deliver one experience, right? Because as a customer grows, you want them to have one consistent experience with the organization. So we created these 2 journey maps really to provide, again, an exhaustive view of what our customers need and how we serve them. So it's based on 2 journeys, right? So the first one is the exporter journey, and that's the journey that the business is on as they navigate the complex trade ecosystem, right? And what we did is we created 30 business moments. And within each one of those business moments, we try to create an exhaustive list of all of the needs that a company will encounter in those business moments based on all the research that we had. We then also showed all the product fit that EDC has that helps those with those needs. And oftentimes, if a company has a working capital need, Insurance can support with that. We have different types of guarantees, so there's really a variety of ways that we can work with them. And we also painted a picture of the partner ecosystem. So everyone that we can work with, many of you in the room are from FIs that we work closely with to deliver these products and services. So that really meant to do, this was sort of a 30-page framework that it was meant to paint an exhaustive picture of how we support Canadian businesses. The customer journey was really meant to articulate what the target state would be that we are building towards. So we actually created, again, it worked out this way. We actually started with 29 service moments, but when we validated it with the rest of the org, we uncovered another, so it's actually 30 and 30, nice symmetry. And really what we did there was, for each one of these critical service moments, we articulated what are the customer goals, what are the top pain points, where are we falling short today, and then how does this connect to the rest of the journey? And we try to define at each service moment what channels is it being delivered it to, what's the next best action, and what kind of transversal journey does it link to, as well as a really clear and crisp articulation of what the target state is. So those are the two journeys that we created, and then we created our persona and archetype framework. And what we did is we took our total addressable market, which was typically like an area chart, right, over time, and we personified it. And we looked at really, for the business archetypes, we looked at three key things. We looked at what is their export status, because for us that's really critical, right? Are they currently exporting? Are they an indirect exporter? So are they feeding into the supply chain? Are they providing a product that then goes to market through another company, another Canadian company? Or are they ready to export, or what we call nexporters? Like, if the conditions were right, would they export? Or are they planning to export in the next couple of years? And then we look at their strategy, and their strategy in particular towards exporting. And what we found is about 40% of Canadian businesses are aggressive exporters. They're using export as a means of fueling their growth. And about 60% are more opportunistic. An opportunity comes along, and they explore it, and we know that they have very, very different needs, and these were really the data points that we used that we found are the greatest differentiators between our product, our customers. The other lens that we apply to this is their business size. Are they a small business? Are they a medium or mid-market, or are they a large enterprise? And then we created our pool of personas. And the personas that we created are actually embedded within each of the business archetypes. And we focused on specific roles. And when we looked at the data, job title was effectively meaningless, right? Sometimes the CEO isn't actually the final decision maker, because if it's in a medium-sized business, maybe it's the owner, right? So job titles we found were really not, it was really around the responsibilities that these people held. So we focused on primary decision makers, those who were going to be the final decider in purchasing a financial product, the influencers, those within the organization who are supporting the overall organization's needs. We're not talking about TikTokers here, but what their role is really, they're supporting through the transaction, as well as they may have other sort of non-financial needs as well. They typically have a lower trade literacy. So we focus a lot of our knowledge products towards them as well. And then we created one single financial product administrator persona, which is really our user persona for our transactional portals. Because we found that many of the needs, when we looked in the data, were very similar. So that last persona, Siva, can really sit in any one of the business archetypes. So this really was meant to paint a picture of what businesses do we serve and what their needs are. And the way that this works is you start with a business archetype, you find out where that business archetype is on their exporter journey, what critical inflection point they're at, and then that moment is where they reach out to EDC. So then who is that person that is going to be reaching out to the EDC? That's the persona, and it's the people within the organization that we have to serve. So in B2B, it's often kind of tricky because the customer is a company, but the customer journey serves people, right? So this was the approach that we took to build out our personas, and this here is just a video I wanted to show of how we validated it, right? We locked ourselves in a room for basically 2 sprints, almost a month. The team produced, an 80-page framework, and then we hosted multiple gallery walks over a couple of weeks. We did them both in person and digitally, and we solicited the collective genius of the organization to validate it, right? And we were probably 95% right, but those critical stickies and the way that the organization engaged with us and provided their feedback just made it really that much stronger of a toolkit. And we knew now we had kind of started to build a little bit of buzz, right? And people were starting to get excited because now it was no longer theoretical about what we were moving towards. There was kind of this very clear picture of the journey that we were going to be creating and the experiences for our customers.
So can I just pause
Yeah,
for a minute?
absolutely.
Because, I think one of the things for me that really stands out here is, I can't imagine the complexity of what you're dealing with. Yeah. So all of these different companies exporting to all of these different markets. Yeah. With all of these different regulations that sit out there. Yeah? And actually what you've done, and I think this is a really important role of an experienced leader, is you've simplified it to a level that people can understand.
Yeah.
So you've taken it down to, here's a couple of journeys, here's 30 key points that matter, here are the critical personas, and now what I can do is actually I can act on that. I can understand that. I can see what my role becomes in doing that. And this gallery walk where you get people's fingerprints all over it, starts to shift the ownership from being yours as a team into something that actually we as an organization have all contributed to now.
That's absolutely right. And we very quickly saw teams taking this once we started to publish it and iterating in their own ways and coming back to us, and just like it continued to kind of build and build in a way that we didn't necessarily expect, right? So I think that co-creation, that engagement, and sort of building that excitement was somewhat by design, but what came out of it was a bit unexpected. And then once we sort of, that was the gallery walk was really to finalize the tool. We did a number of different activities to activate it across the org. And I'm just going to share kind of 5 sort of key examples of what we did to really activate the toolkit. One is we had our lead of UXR actually design our own sort of design thinking curriculum. We kind of took the best from IDEO and Nielsen Norman, and we put together what worked for us. And she designed a few workshop series that we could run different teams through, and they all followed the same approach, right? It's what customer are you? Who's your target customer? What archetype? Okay, where are they on their export journey? How are you serving them? What product fit? Okay, based on that, based on the product, who's the person, and let's design the best journey for that person using the Lego blocks that we've provided in the customer journey, right? So when we ran multiple teams through these, sometimes we had workshops as large as this room. Sometimes we did it individually within one small team. But it really started to get the wheels moving and getting different teams to leverage the tool. We also, it was a ton of information. It's 70 some pages, just the journeys, right? So we actually put them up in a few different conference rooms that teams could book. So if they're going into their planning cycle, they could go into the space where the customer and all the customer needs and all the journey is just surrounding them, right? So we set up a few spaces like that. At our employee conference, we actually hosted a game show where we called it The Customer is Right. My 2 colleagues, we called them Bob and Drew, and they presented at the conference, but so much work went into building that sort of game show that they actually went on tour afterwards as well. So different SVPs would reach out to us and say, oh, will you come to my town hall? Will you give the first 15 minutes, play this game? But it's really like the gamification of the content and getting people excited and understanding our customers a little bit better. And then, we put a lot of effort. This was a bit of a grassroots activity, right? Like as a team, we really felt, And as CX leaders, sometimes you have to lean into that owning that space, being those change agents, that we saw that there was a bit of a gap. We were saying all the right things within the org, but no one was sort of aligned on what it meant, right? So we sort of set out to do that and to provide that sort of, and then to validate it. But then came the time where we really had to bring the executives on board as well. And I think a real win for us was actually one of the images there. There's two women in white blazers. One of them is the one woman pointing is Minister Valdez, the Minister of Small Business for Canada. And she was in a meeting with our CEO, and she said, you know what, I'd really love to learn more about what EDC does to support small business. And our CEO said, come to our office, and we'll walk you through the exporter journey. Right? Because that is really the exhaustive view of everything that we do to support small business. And we've run similar workshops with our board of directors, really getting people used to this kind of new standard way of thinking about customer experience. And we're starting to hear the words service moment, which was not a word that had previously existed in the organization, being shared at town halls. So that's where we're really starting to see the fruits of the work. So how we communicate was really, really critical for us as a team. And I think as practitioners in CX, we often sit on mountains of insights, mountains of data. And what we really committed ourselves to is we would focus on creating digital experiences rather than decks. And so what we did, we actually created, and this is just a SharePoint site, but we really pushed the limits of the SharePoint site, and we really felt that it was our responsibility to emulate the type of experience that we want to provide to our customers, right? So we had our experience pillars, and we tried to bring them to life as much as we could through a tool like SharePoint. And what this does is, instead of somebody reaching out and asking, oh, I need this information, and you going away and pulling a deck, it's just our way to continuously communicate. And then we use, one thing I would highly recommend on our CX team, and anytime I'm hiring, I look at our bench and I think about the 6 disciplines. And really thinking about having someone on your team, on your CX team, that's a terrific marketer, right? And that can actually market CX to the organization. And so we had someone who really knew how to create really good digital experiences. The other thing that we did was so there's 4 questions that we use to create our personas and our archetypes. And we ask them on every single survey that we run, right? So we know what our NPS score is by archetype. We know what our like their trade confidence, brand awareness. And so what we do here with the hub is we're able to use data visualization to publish results across multiple pages from the back end, right? So this is one of the pages we know what their top financial needs are, their non-financial needs. Anytime we update this data, we just need to post it to an Excel file, and it automatically populates. We've also put tools in the hands of our employees that really bring these insights to life. So this is a tool we worked with our innovation team. It's a navigator of all our products and the needs that they serve and qualifications for, but there's also a way to navigate it based on customer needs that are all tied to our journey map. This is a view, I don't know, we run in Agile, and this is ADO. I don't know, maybe some of you use Jira, but it's really our planning tool. And we actually sort of hacked our planning tool to create our CX backlog. So rather than just creating a list of top customer pain points, we used a tool like this that's super dynamic, and you can actually attach all the decks, all the insights that you have. We can do a different prioritization and ranking on the customer pain points. And now when the executives ask us, what are our top customer pain points? Well, we can say, here they are ranked. Here's what journeys they connect to, and we can also tag what different teams are working on them, right? So a tool like this, rather than historically, it just would have sat, again, in a deck somewhere and gotten stale. So again, I think this is really speaks to our approach, right? Which is really making the CX tools systematic and empowering different ways of working. And we've had a ton of success working with the different groups across the organization. Get really close with the folks in enterprise architecture. Your journey maps are really the highest level of architecture for your organization, right? That's why service blueprints have them at the top, right? So it's the experience that defines how talent, process, and technology should operate. I think I'll just end on this one thought, and it's oftentimes you'll see in different strategy decks customer centricity as a pillar, right? And this is something that we've started to really challenge. It's not a pillar. Customer centricity is as it's like brand, right? It cannot be a pillar. It is a thread that you have to weave through the entire fabric of the culture. And there's different ways that we've done this. You know, we worked with our HR team. They were developing a leadership training module. There were six modules, and one of them was on customer centricity. And we said, why? Why can't we just make them all about customer centricity? Right? Or when you see a deck and you see customer centricity sitting over on its own, why? Let's just weave it in, right? And so that's just maybe one final thought to share.
Yeah, and I love that. Yeah, that shift to this is just who we are and how we operate, rather than it being something that's a particular pillar, as you call it, a part of a strategy. This is just who you are and how you operate. And for me, as you tell that story, I'm reminded of what you've done there. Not only did you simplify through all the tools and make it easy for it to be consumed, but you actually started to invest in the capabilities that people need to actually deliver it. So the design workshops, the process that you go through, you provide the resources to people to make it easy for them to do. You build effectively that muscle that they need inside of the organization to keep delivering, because you and your team can't do this.
No, that's it.
Nor do you want to do it on your own.
No.
Yeah, success is when it's owned and it's operated, and it's used by everyone across the organization. And as you said, the other thing you've done is you've motivated folks, to do it. I mean, you've made it an exciting thing to be part of. So I think this is a wonderful story. Thank you very much for sharing it, Bob.
Thank you so much. I don't know if there are any questions.
Here. Oh, that was fantastic. Curious.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to put all of this together?
So it's iterative and ongoing, right? But it took us probably 3 or 4 months of heads down. But again, it's always about timing. Sometimes you get these windows of opportunity. Sometimes there's not a huge demand, and that's where we found ourselves, right? We knew the organization was going to undergo this major transformation, but we knew they weren't ready yet to really tackle the front end, and that's really oftentimes where we play, right? So we were given this window of opportunity, and we kind of seized it.
And just to follow up to that, was this based on actual conversations with your customers? Did you do some anecdotal data? How did you kind of paint that whole story?
Yeah, so the personas and archetypes, we actually did 2 rounds, like a round of quant, then qual, then quant, then qual. And they really was, this is years of evolved thinking as well. Like we've had these types of tools before. It's just we had never actually brought it all together as like an integrated framework, right? We had lots of journey maps, but oftentimes like very product focused, right? And when we looked at our integrated journey map, it was like 300 touch points because we had so many like product specific touch points. So it really was an evolution of what we had previously done.
I mean, that ability to go from having lots of stuff across the organization, different tools, personas, whatever, just stuff. There's the plethora that we probably all see in our organizations that exists. To then take that and consolidate it and have I would say the courage yeah, to step forward and say, no, this is how we're going to do it, I think is a really strong part. And imagine if you were to take your organization 3 or 4 months hence, and you'd equipped and empowered people around that. I mean, that's what we're talking about, the art of the possible here.
Not really. There was some, like, what are you doing? We didn't, like, there was some, I remember when we first presented the board, one of the SVPs came in and was like, oh, this isn't how we've been talking to them. And then I just said, well, what are you working on? And I say, well, these are our initiatives. And I said, okay, let's write them down and let's put them on the map, right? Like, nothing that we were putting forward it conflicts with anything that the organization is doing. We're just, it's a bit of a sense-making exercise, right? So that we can see the impact that we're having.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, we can tag that.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Here, I'll take the remote.